Now, before we get started, I would really love if you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get the latest content from the YouTube channel, The Last Rewind. And don't be shy about leaving your comments at the bottom of the page because you are the sole reason why this channel will be successful. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to The Last Rewind with your host today, Big Red. And today we're going to talk about some ignorant statements made by no other than Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, it looks like I don't want to say rebuild mode, but looks like that's kind of close to where we're at. Even though we have a franchise, or supposed to be a franchise quarterback, a franchise defensive player, and supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime defensive player, Micah Parsons. Last year was horrible. It was one of the worst years in Cowboy history. Not the worst, but one of the worst. With the hopes of trying to compete in the NFC East, trying to compete for a championship. We were not close to either of those tasks. We could say we were ravaged by injuries, and that could be our excuse. But that wouldn't explain the other years that we do not seem to be a formidable opponent to anybody in the NFL. Yes, we've had years where we won 12 games and we won the NFC East, but what did that translate to? What did it translate to in the postseason? I think we're 1-2 in the last playoff years. 49ers, Packers destroyed us. And the Eagles, within the last few years, have won 2 championships, 2 Super Bowls. Namely this one in 2025, where they destroyed Patrick Mahomes and prevent him from winning a 3rd straight championship for the Chiefs. Chiefs are going home to change their style, rebuild, and try to do something different, while it seems like we are just stagnant and staying in the same place year by year. We're just satisfied with whatever the status quo in Dallas is now, because it certainly does not seem to be championships. Dak Prescott was interviewed and responded to how what Dallas may be looking like in the next year or so with their new head coach Brian Schottenheimer and the Eagles, who just won their championship 40-22 in the Super Bowl. He asked, what's the gap look like between the Eagles and the Cowboys? And here's how he responded. I feel like we compete with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we play them. Regular season, I'm assuming he means. I don't want to say check the record. That's what you're saying. When they're the guys holding the trophy right now, so credit to them. They earned it and they deserve it by all means. But yeah, very close. Very close. Very close? No, Dak. You're not very close. You were closer before you got rid of Mike McCarthy. And people were coming for Mike McCarthy's head, but you didn't improve. And I won't say you. Jerry Jones didn't improve in that area with the coach. A guy who actually won a Super Bowl with Green Bay. And like I said, he gave you some pretty good regular season standings, but it didn't translate into the playoffs. But you think we're close. Your offensive line, which is, kind of in shadows right now. And we don't know what we're going to do with Zach Martin in the future because, his health comes and goes. Seems like it mostly goes. We're not close. Eagles saw that during the Super Bowl program. People, their offensive line averages, I think that might be the defensive line. I was about to say, I thought it was the people who were 6'8" and 300 plus pounds. I think that was the defensive line. But their offensive line is outstanding. They protect their quarterback, and then they protect their quarterback can run when need to be. Dak has to be prompted to run. That used to be part of his game to where if he couldn't find an open wide receiver, he'd shoot the gaps, he'd run, and he'd get a first down. But now, I think after that ankle injury, he's become afraid to take a chance because that's actually how he got hurt, trying to run and try to make a play. And I think he's scared to do it now. He tried a little bit because it seems like the naysayers were starting to say Dak doesn't run anymore. And he heard that and he tried to run for a little bit, but not too much. And especially if we don't have much of a running game, it improved somewhat towards the second half of the season. But still, if something's got to change, got to be the offensive line, and we have to improve on the running game because we can't have you throwing 30 passes and averaging 400 yards because that's not one of your strengths. So Brian Schottenheimer, whoever that is, has to work on that. We don't have, that's another part, we don't have a viable number 2 wide receiver. We have a pretty good one in CeeDee Lamb, number 1. But we don't have, all they're going to do is key in on him, take away your strengths, and now we're going to go back to the running game. We don't have one. So we need a number 2 wide receiver, a good wide receiver, not a decent one. We need a good wide receiver. It doesn't have to be CeeDee Lamb, but competent. Eagles have that. The Eagles have several choices to go to when it comes to third down or even fourth down. They're confident enough that they can make the winning play or get a first down. And then the other part, this one's been my chief complaint, which probably relates to the other complaints I just had, the front office. The front office that hired that guy, Brian Schottenheimer, Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, if he doesn't have some sort of emergency plan, if he doesn't have some sort of, a fire alarm going off in his head to make him go and make these big transactions and get these great players on these teams, then no, you're not going to be close to the Eagles. And you're not close now. And all intents and purposes in the last couple of years, probably more than that, Jerry ain't going to spend money on no outside people. It's just going to be draft, build within. And yes, you got Micah Parsons. That's how we got to the predicament we got with him. No, I won't say predicament. Micah's a good person. Micah's a good player. So we built from within when it comes to that. We got Dak on that. Well, if you want Dak, but we got him from the inside. And that's because Rumble got hurt. And then rookie Dak came in and somewhat saved the day. But it seems like Jerry is going to just build from the inside. He's not going to make any big trades to improve this roster because we had the chance to get the Super Bowl winning running back, Saquon Barkley. We had a chance to get a guy who was in the playoffs this past year, and Derrick Henry, a guy who was still in his prime and running over defensive linemen like bowling pins. We had a man even express his desire to come here, and we dropped the ball on that. Eagles will go and get their man or get somebody that can help the team at any time of the season if need be. So know that you are not close. You're not. We didn't make the playoffs. We got embarrassed in the playoffs the year before. They just won a championship. We are not close. Okay? And then lastly, I can say you, Dak. Dak, the last 2 playoffs versus the 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, you had a 6 touchdown to a 6 interception ratio. You got embarrassed and bullied out of the playoffs the last 2 times. You don't look like you can be a Jalen Hurts. If we were to switch that to the Eagles would not win a championship. Because it comes down a lot of times to the quarterback. The quarterback is the leader of the team. Regardless if there's a great defense or not, everything comes back on the quarterback. The quarterback's responsible for the wins and responsible for the losses. Maybe unfair. Dak has not been that guy. He's had decent regular seasons where he's at some point had the opportunity to maybe win an MVP, somewhat top 3 voting, whatever, maybe top 5, but it doesn't matter. When the lights are brightest, that usually becomes dim. And then you got Michael Parsons. Michael Parsons doesn't seem all in. He says he's all in, but his mouth says something totally different. And what do I mean by that? Check out this clip that he had to say about possibly getting Derrick Henry on the team and his response about that. And Rob Parker, the odd couple, gives his response on what Michael Parsons had to say about that. Check this out right quick.
I never miss his podcast.
I never miss it.
If there's a podcast I know you missed, this is one.
So he's talking to Derrick Henry, and one of the crowd, the audience members, says what everybody's thinking. Hey, man, don't you wish that Derrick Henry had joined you with the Cowboys? Here's what Mike had to say about it.
Jerry got my number blocked. I couldn't even get it. I couldn't even call Jerry. Jerry got my number blocked. Are you upset that Derrick Henry didn't come to Dallas? I said, nah, that's not how God worked. He was exactly where he was supposed to be.
Exactly.
Year 8, 9 of his career, still going for 1,800 yards, playoffs. He was exactly where he's supposed to be. I'm happy that didn't get ruined by us.
It was all good until that last sentence, Rob.
Well, I'll say this. If I'm the Cowboys, okay, I've had enough. This is what he'd rather put his time and energy. Every time he says something, he's ripping on the organization, ripping on Dak Prescott. Like enough. Does he not understand? Like you don't have to say everything out loud. You know, like you have to have some diplomacy. You got to understand who's paying your paycheck. I don't understand guys who think that they're bulletproof and they can just say and do whatever. He's so unfiltered that it's ridiculous. And if I'm the Cowboys, you could get a king's ransom for him. You're not winning anything now. I'm sorry. Who'd they just hire? Some guy from Schottenheimer's kid, right? Yeah. Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah, it was like who wants to be a coach in there? Yeah,
who was on nobody's wish list as a head coach in the NFL because they got him cheap, and Jerry can still coach the team.
I can be the big dog. He'll listen to me, do everything I say. Yep.
And Micah will get you some stuff. You don't have to go. You already paid CeeDee Lamb. You already paid Dak Prescott. Now you're going to do it. You're going to pay him too? Like where does this stop? Like, go reestablish yourself. Their defense last year, what'd they give up? 40 or more points in the first 4 or 5 games at home last year? Mm-hmm. Not counting the playoff game, they got blown out against the Packers.
Yeah.
That was the
year
previous,
before.
right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm cool with it. I would be willing to make a move, get some top picks for him. He will fetch you a haul. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right. So you heard what Rob Parker had to say, and you got to have some cohesiveness when you have a championship winning team. When one of your main leaders on the team, Michael Parsons, says, I'm glad that we didn't get Derrick Henry. I think he's lying. At hindsight, I think he's lying. He wanted him. Talking about, well, what was supposed to happen was, happen. And he's somewhat right, too. What would Derrick Henry have done? I'm sure he would have improved the team by leaps and bounds. It wouldn't have put him over the edge to win a championship, but you still have to have a player in place to help you improve toward the road to a championship. You just don't rely on mediocre players throughout the whole team, whatever. I mean, of course, you're going to have mediocre players, and then you got your superstars. But you got to have your superstars on the team, and you wanted him. And don't lie. And if you had a chance to trade for him today, don't lie and say, like, you wouldn't want Derrick Henry or you wouldn't want Saquon Barkley. You would absolutely take him on the team. But you said something that would, if I were listening to, and I'm on another NFL team, and I'm thinking, if maybe I want to go to Dallas and test free agency and go to Dallas and try to help them win the championship. But then when I hear you do this interview live on your podcast, I believe, and you're talking to Derrick Henry, I'm not talking to Derrick Henry, but you're doing this interview and they ask you about Derrick Henry, and you say, I'm glad because we would have ruined him. What other free agent would want to come to your team? Regardless of position, what other player would want to come to your team when you're talking down on your own team? And you talk down about Dak too. You can do everything you want behind closed doors, say behind closed doors, but you got at least publicly, you got to side with your teammates, man. And some things you just got to keep behind closed doors, dog. You can't let everything be public. That's, I think Rob made a point. He's not on the video here, but he made a point on, because I think their podcast is under Spectrum. It was like, you couldn't come and talk bad about Spectrum and you work for them. You're supposed to support them. They're the ones to give you your paycheck. So as a teammate, if this is your guy, this is your quarterback, then you can't be talking bad about him in the public. Now you can go to him and say, hey, you need to up your game. You need to start throwing interceptions and such and such and such. You can say that kind of stuff, but publicly, you ain't doing nothing but shaming him. That's not going to help his confidence, and that's not going to help your team. So to answer again to Dak, no, you are not close. Micah, I think maybe already sees the writing on the wall because he talks like he's, he only has a few years left. He doesn't get a ring, then he may go off to a winning team. He almost talks like LeBron, like he said, hey, like in Cleveland, hey, y'all don't do it in the next few years, I'm out. I'm going to another team. There's no loyalty in Michael Parsons' voice when I hear him talk about the team. Even during the season, he talks about other teammates and other teams and how good they're doing. I'm like, dude, what about your team? Stick to talk about your team. But that's my thoughts about it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about it. Please leave your comments down below. And this is the end of the Last Rewind. And make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And I will see you on the next episode of the Last Rewind. Go out there and be kind. Make sure you check us out on the Last Rewind. I'm stumbling on myself. It's late. Y'all have a good night. Peace.